Welcome to the University of Arizona Global Campus Research Symposium. I'm Dr. Denise Maxwell, and I'm going to introduce our speaker. Dr. Mara Adetula has a Doctor of Psychology and Conflict Resolution. She's also a practicing attorney in Nigeria, where she lives part of the year with her family, and she lives in Dallas part of the year with her family. Dr. Adetula's study is entitled The Ithaca People's Perception of the Niger Delta Amnesty Program as a Conflict Resolution Tool in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. Dr. Adetula, we're looking forward to learning from you today, and the mic is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Dennis. It's a pleasure. Before I go further, I would like to introduce myself further and talk a little about myself. I am a Nigerian American from the Urhobo ethnic group in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. I did my elementary, middle, and high school in Warri, a famous city in the Niger Delta region. I have my law degree in the Ambosali University in Nigeria, a postgraduate diploma in European International Trade Law at the Amsterdam Law School in the Netherlands. In the United States, I managed a family pharmaceutical company while doing my master's in Administration of Justice and Security Bridge at the University of Phoenix, where I graduated with honors and earned the Alpha Phi Sigma Merit Award. I am a recent doctoral graduate of the Oxford University, where I obtained a doctorate in psychology with a specialization in conflict resolution and mediation. I am happily married to Dr. Michael Ola Adetula, a pharmacist and a doctor in naturopathic medicine, and we are blessed with children. I am a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, a member of the American Psychological Association, and a member of the an associate of the National Labor Institute of Nigeria. My study was conducted relying on data from 4 different databases, one from peer-reviewed journal article, thesis, and dissertations, 2 from ProQuest, 3 Health cohorts, and 4 from Sage and Google Scholar database. Using these different databases, over 200 sources were identified dating from the 1990s to the present. Many of these sources referred to in the study are resources published at the time of my research within 5 years. However, for clarity, sources more than 5 years old were referred to for corroboration, reliability, and understanding. The background of my study: before the famous Niger Delta Amnesty Program, the Niger Delta region, popularly known for its wealth in crude oil, yet very poor, with its natural ecosystem destroyed as a result of decades of oil exploitation and exploration in the region. That resulted in severe environmental pollution with profound effects on the people's health and livelihood. This led to insurgency and peaceful protests by the people of the region, just to draw attention to the degradation of their environment, as well as to seek greater inclusiveness, equity, and control over their resources. The struggle in the Niger Delta region continued despite several efforts by the Nigerian government to find a lasting solution in the region. My study was necessary to address an age-long problem in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. A problem that does not only affect the Niger Delta people, but it affected the Nigerian government, as well as multinationals who committed their resources and time in the oil exploration business in the region. The problems are in twofold. First is the general problem, which is an increase in violence, despite the introduction of Niger Delta Amnesty Program. Some minority cultural groups, like the Isoko people, continue to complain of being left out of a developmental initiative program. Second, the Isoko communities, where we have the most lucrative oil wells, continue to remain impoverished with no development recorded in their communities. A situation that has left them thinking, being oppressed by other majority tribes that they believe the Nigerian government only listens to. The purpose of my study was to investigate and record how the Isoko people, who are one of the minority groups in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria, perceive the Niger Delta Amnesty Program. In doing so, a sample group for the study was drawn from the Isoko people. The Isoko group includes 20 Isoko indigenes within the age group of 30 years to 60 years, who were either residents in the Niger Delta region or Lagos, Nigeria. My focus was to have an understanding, as well as being able to describe how the Isoko people within and outside the Niger Delta region perceived the Niger Delta Amnesty Program, which reference to the Isoko communities in the region. Notwithstanding, the significance of my study was in threefold. First, it added new insights to the body of knowledge on how the minority cultural groups, specifically how the Isoko people of the Niger Delta perceive the Niger Delta Amnesty Program. Second was that theoretical significance of this study contributed to the expansion of knowledge on how the Niger Delta people perceived the Niger Delta Amnesty Program. As the Nigerian government pursued peace building in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. Also, it added new dynamics to the theories of conflict resolution as applied to conflicts in Nigeria in relation to people with diverse cultural groups. Background. Third, the study was important because it provided practical significance that helped to understand how ethnic groups in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria reacted to the Niger Delta Amnesty Program. The research was conducted based on the research questions I formulated. The research questions that prompted this study were in threefold. The first one was, from the perspective of the Isoko people of Niger Delta region, age 30 to 60, what were their perception of the Niger Delta Amnesty Program? The second research question was, what implementation strategy can be used for any future development initiative to ensure the Isoko people are not left feeling marginalized. Then the last and the third research question was, what are the basic needs of the Iseko people in the Niger Delta region? Carrying out this study, I had to use the qualitative research method with an exploratory case study design because a qualitative research method was suitable for examining persons, places, events, or phenomena. In the process, it is easier for one to extrapolate key themes and results that can predict future trends. Also, it is used to illuminate previously hidden issues that can be applied to practice and served as a means of understanding an important research problem with greater clarity. Using an exploratory case study design allowed me to ask broad questions that opened the door for further examination of the phenomenon investigated. Also conducting this study, participants were purposefully drawn from a general population of the Isoko people, but was limited to a specific population of Isoko people between the age of 30 to 60. The specific population were the Isoko people who understood the purpose of the Niger Delta Amnesty Program and the various stages of the program. The involvement of these 20 participants gave me the opportunity to conduct interviews and maximize information without causing redundancy in providing data. The selected sample size was viewed as appropriate to address the research questions and guarantee the collection of required data. Interviews was conducted through telephone and face-to-face. 10 participants were interviewed in the Niger Delta region, and 10 participants were interviewed in Lagos. This was necessary because it gave me the opportunity to gather my data from 2 different environments and compared responses of both groups from 2 different environments. So that brings me to analyzing my data. To analyze my data, I relied on Brum and Clark's 6-step framework for a thematic analysis. The 6-step framework were step 1, become familiar with the data. Step 2, generate initial codes. Step 3, search for themes. Step 4, review themes. Step 5, define themes. And then step 6, I started my write-up. My goal while using a thematic analysis was to identify themes that are important to my study. These themes were used to address the research questions, a process that is more than summarizing the data. While using themes to address the research question, I was careful not to use the main interview questions as themes. Based on Brum and Clark's classification of themes, I considered themes to be my basic tools that were very important in my study. I classified these themes into two themes, the semantic and the latent themes. The semantic themes were information gathered within the explicit surface of the data, while the latent theme, I had to look beyond what participants said which formed the crux of my study. In the process of analyzing the data gathered, I made use of triangulation to ensure the validity of my test results. Considering the different types of triangulation, I had to make use of method triangulation by comparing data gathered from participants engaged face-to-face during their interview to participants interviewed on the phone. This was important to me because I needed to know if their responses will differ significantly. Also, I made use of environmental triangulation by comparing data collected from participants in the Niger Delta region to data collected from participants in Lagos, a place outside the Niger Delta region. According to Newman, triangulation is the perception of an image from multiple points of view to improve accuracy by testing its validity through the convergence of information from various sources. That brings me to the result of my study. The result of my study was based on data analyzed, correlated with the research questions that form the basis for the 20 exploratory semi-structured interviews conducted as telephone and as face-to-face interviews. While analyzing data, I identified three primary themes relating to the perception of the Isoko people. An alignment of the three research questions with the codes and themes provided a framework that formed a comprehensive piece of the research findings. The focus of the first research questions above was to understand how the Isoko people perceive the Niger Delta Amnesty Program. The findings of this study show that the Isoko people perceive the program as a failure and discriminatory because the program only favored a particular group in the Niger Delta region. Also, it shows that no participants had a different view of the program as not being discriminatory. The second research question enumerated above focused on developing an understanding on the needs of the Isoko people. The findings of this study show that the basic amenities like good roads, plentiful healthcare facilities, promotion of cottage industries, provision of good education and educational facilities, reliable power supply, flood control, and potable pipe-borne water are required to support the Isoko communities. Findings from my study suggest that good roads in and around the Isoko communities, good pipe-borne water, and the provision of cottage industries seems to be the most important needs of the people because these needs facilitate development in the region. The third research question, as stated above, concentrated on strategies the participants believed would have been the best in dealing with future programs like the Amnesty Program. Findings showed that the inclusiveness of all ethnic groups, regardless of their size, violent and non-violent tendencies, gender classification are important to the success of any peace-building tool like the Niger Delta Amnesty Program. Also, findings showed that Education is a basic tool that can be used to win our jobless youth out of the streets. At the conclusion of my study, I realized there are still gaps to be filled in the field of study. As such, I made 4 specific recommendations for further research on this topic. First, I proposed a closer examination of some topics, such as the role politics play in the implementation of a development initiative in African countries, especially Nigeria. Second, what is the relationship between violent agitation and non-violent agitation in a democratic society? I formulated these topics due to opinions expressed by participants during their interviews. The reason I went ahead to discuss these aspects of new research topics with so much details is because they may add to the understanding of why a certain group of people in the Niger Delta region felt alienated from a society that they believed they have built with the resources generated in their region. Additionally, the application of more diverse research methods could add to the discussions of this important topic within the context of programs designed for conflict resolution as well as development. Third, I propose the use of focus groups and the application of multiple case studies for examining similar issues. The use of a multiple case study will allow researchers to try to replicate the results of one study with another, which would yield more robustness to the conclusion of this study. These alternative designs and strategies would allow researchers to focus on the perspective or opinions of participants in settings different than the limited sample that was purposely drawn and suitable for this case study. Lastly, I propose the use of quantitative methodology to study the relationship between revolutionary violence and peace building in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. The use of a qualitative research method would allow the researcher to determine the relationship between an independent variable, peace building, and a dependent variable, revolutionary agitation, in parentheses. This research design could be either descriptive or experimental, as it could focus on numeric and on changing data and detailed convergent reasoning rather than divergent reasoning. The use of a quantitative research method would address gaps and the limitation associated with using qualitative methods that do not allow generalization of results for a wider population. However, for the current study, the qualitative exploratory case study remains the most appropriate choice to answer the research questions. Thank you very much. As participating in this symposium is a privilege to me because it is an opportunity for growth and improvement, which I cherish more. Thank you.
Mara, your study was so informative. Not sure about the feedback, sorry. I'm wondering if I could ask you one question. One of your recommendations from your study was
Mhm.
that, or one of your conclusions that you drew is that one of the things that was needed was definitely attention to an improvement within the roads. Can you elaborate around why that would be so important in the Niger Delta?
Can you repeat that question because I didn't hear you clearly?
One of the conclusions that you came up with your study was that there was a need for improved roads. I'm wondering
Yes.
if you could share more about why that would be an important result from this study.
It is important because when you look at the roads, they don't have good roads. And they need these good roads to be able to channel whatever business, because they have to transport their products, their farm products, and they need good roads. The roads are not motorable. So with a good road, they will be able to move their products. It will be a good channel for them to move their products from one location to the other. I think that also is a development, is going to be a development in that region.
So it would definitely improve the economy, which would then go into some of the other things you described that needed to be improved there.
Correct, correct.
Well, thanks for giving such an informative study and sharing the results with us. We really appreciate the time that you put into this. Thank you very much for participating in the research symposium.
Thank you.
Thanks.